background as I like to do. Very quickly, Pilgrim's Progress. The full name is The Pilgrim's Progress from This World to That Which is to Come, and that will make sense at some point in the talk I'm about to give. And it's by John Bunyan, who is an English Christian preacher. And quick recap, what's happened so far? Well, Pilgrim is feeling very tired and weary. Why is he feeling tired and weary? Well, he had a big fight with Apollyon, which represents the devil, and he won, but just narrowly, and it was a big, big fight, so he's feeling very, very tired. He's walking down this path to go toward the celestial city. And and he's reading the Bible, but he forgets the Bible isn't just about fighting your enemies, it's also there for comfort. So Pilgrim has a lot of doubt as he's walking towards the celestial city. And he's speaking out loud all these doubts that he has. And as he's speaking them out loud, see, there's the celestial city, that's where he's trying to go. And as he's speaking out loud, another pilgrim is also walking on the same path as Pilgrim, and this pilgrim is known as Hopeful, and they have a great time, they have a lovely conversation, and Pilgrim's like, yeah, it'd be really great to have a companion to walk with me down to the celestial city, so they do that, and everything is great, but then the ground starts to get rocky and hard, and Pilgrim notices a really lovely, soft, grassy side on the other side of the fence, and he says, hey, let's go over there. They really should be going over there because, oh, it looks really nice over there. It's very pleasant. So why don't we go on that side? And so that's what they do. And like I said, it was a bad idea. Why? Because storms start to come. It gets so bad that they come nowhere to sleep. They have to sleep under some boards. And then clump, clump, big sound, and it's not the thunder. No, it's a big giant. And the giant's called Giant Despair. And he comes and he confronts them. Now, what does that represent? Well, it represents that despair comes to us when we leave God's path. Because they've gone on the right path, but then when they went on the wrong path, that's when Giant Despair came. And Giant Despair took them, brought them, threw them in a dungeon that's smelly and dark. And they're thinking to themselves, what have we done? I can't believe that we came off God's path. But then they remember to read the Bible, and they remember that God always rescues his people. When they read Moses, they realize, hey, God always rescues his people. And then Pilgrim remembers, wait a minute, I've got a key. And he's had this key all along with him, and the key is called the promise of God. And that key unlocks the dungeon, and they're able to escape, and the Giant Despair tries to chase them, but as soon as he sees the key, he collapses, and they're able to escape and get back to the right path. So that's what happened last week. But what happens next? Well, the lesson of last week was that leaving God's path leads to despair. God's promises unlock despair, and God's promises bring freedom and hope. And so now we get to the final chapter. What's going to happen next? Now, a little bit quick background. John Bunyan's writing the story, and in the story, the narrator's telling a dream, and these are the sorts of things he's seen in his dream. And in this narrator's dream, he sees another pilgrim, which means another traveler, and that pilgrim is that pilgrim right over there, right over here. So this pilgrim right there, Christian and hopeful, the traveler, and they see ignorance. That's the name of this pilgrim. His name is Ignorance. And Ignorance says he's also going to the celestial city. There's a difference between ignorance and Christian and hopeful. You see, Ignorance believes that he's good enough. He believes, yeah, I'm fine, I can just get there. And he doesn't believe he's a sinner. And he doesn't believe you need to be forgiven in order to reach the celestial city. He says, you know what, I'm a really good person. I don't need to go to the cross, do anything like that. I can just walk straight in there because I've done so many good things. And Christian and hopeful are thinking, oh no, I think he's got false hope. What he's basing his hope on is on things that aren't true. He's basing it on good works. There's only one person that's good enough, that's fully good, and that's Jesus. Nobody else is good enough, but ignorance thinks that he's good enough, and that's the problem that he has. But Christian and hopeful know that true hope comes from those who admit that you're a sinner. We all have to admit that we're sinners. That's where our true hope comes in. So anyway, Pilgrim and hopeful, you continue traveling, and everything isn't always smooth. Sometimes they get off the wrong path, but in the end, they end up getting back on the right way, right? Whereas they're walking down the right way, they keep noticing behind them ignorance. Now and again, they'll just see ignorance, and ignorance is walking around with his head held high, and he's walking very confidently and boldly. He's like, "Yeah, I'm definitely going to get in there. I don't need to do anything." He's walking there confidently and proudly. What does that show? That confidence does not equal salvation. You can be confidently wrong. Just because you're confident doesn't mean that you're gonna definitely get into heaven. No, we have to place your confidence in the right thing. And ignorance just has confidence, but it's not placed on the right thing. It's not placed on Jesus, right? So they continue, pilgrim and hopeful, and they start to read about Cain and Abel. And they notice something. You see, Cain, in the story of Cain and Abel, Cain offered God, he gave some offering to God, but he offered it in his own way, right? He wanted to give God something that he wanted to give God, rather than what God had asked, while Abel obeyed in God's way. Abel chose what God wanted. And you see in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 4, it says, by faith, Abel offered to God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain. Well, what does that mean? Well, faith is obeying and trusting in God. So Abel had obeyed and trusted God and done what God had asked him, while Cain hadn't. And that's what ignorance is like. Ignorance isn't doing what God asks. He's saying, you know what, I can do this myself. I'll get to the celestial city in my own way, not the way that the king, the God, has told me to enter the celestial city. What does that teach us? Well, God wants us to listen, trust, and obey him, not just do what we think is best. And so, as pilgrim and Christian, sorry, Christian is also known as pilgrim, but as Christian, pilgrim, and hopeful are heading towards the celestial city, they finally get there and they see it. Oh wow! And it's shining. It's shining like gold, really bright, and they're so happy. They feel the joy and amazement because it's so glorious. It's amazing. They can't believe that they're almost there, and they rest and the beautiful place, and they just look at the celestial city, just in amazement, like wow, that's so lovely. And they learn that they must wait before they go in. They can't go straight in. They get told you have to wait a second, and then we'll let you know when it's time for you to head in. And they see other pilgrims as well, other travelers that head in, and the other travelers say, "Oh, hey, farewell, bye, see you later." And as the pilgrims go in, they can hear some singing, and the pilgrim and hopeful hear these amazing songs of praise, and the songs to Jesus Christ. And but the question is, what happens to ignorance? See, ignorance is still also walking down that road, and he's still walking very boldly. He's like, "Yeah, I'm definitely going to make it in." And he doesn't wait to be called in. No, he just goes straight in. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'll just keep walking." Why do you think he keeps walking towards that celestial city so boldly? Well, it's because he believes God will accept him. And why is that? Because he believes he's a good person. But suddenly, just before he's able to even get to the celestial city, he gets taken, picked up, and he's thrown over a cliff. What does that teach us? There's only one way to be saved, and that's the way. That way is God's way. There's no other way. And so an angel soon leads pilgrim and hopeful to the celestial city. There's a river that stands between the celestial city and the pilgrim, and the angel tells the pilgrim and hopeful to just keep the eye focused on the shore, that they'll be fine. Everything, as long as they keep the eyes focused, they don't look at the waves. Just have trust in the guidance that the king has provided with the angel. And so that's what they do. They go through the river, and Pilgrim enters the water, but he starts to become afraid. But Hopeful starts to give him some encouragement. He says, "Just look up there, look up there, look at the celestial city, look how amazing it is." And guess what? There's also other people coming
out of the city. They're all on the shore, and they're there to give encouragement and to welcome them. It's the other pilgrims, and when pilgrim keeps his eyes on the shore, he's able the waves start to calm down, and instantly, immediately, he gets to the gate. They're both able to get to the gate, to the other side, to the shore. And pilgrim and hopeful reach the gate of the celestial city. And at the gate, they're welcomed by those who had gone before, the other pilgrims. And each of them, every single pilgrim, had gone through the gate of decision. Remember that? Remember before the gate of decision? They went through there, and each of them had trusted in Jesus Christ, that they put their faith in Jesus Christ, and that's how their sins were forgiven and taken away. And and that's the way that they all got to the gate. That's the only way you can get to the celestial city. And the celestial city represents heaven. The only way we can get to heaven is through Jesus. There's no other way. We shouldn't be like ignorance and think, oh yeah, I can get there by myself. No, it's only through Jesus Christ. And pilgrim and hopeful join the singing in the celestial city, which represents heaven. They praise the King and his Son, who represents the King, representing the God the Father, and Jesus Christ representing the Son. And their names are written in heaven. And we know this speaks of Christians, that our names are written in heaven. As Jesus says in Luke chapter 10, verse 20, rejoice because your names are written in heaven. And their journey is complete. And the big story here is there's only one way to heaven, God's way. And those who trust Jesus will safely reach heaven. And that is the end of Pilgrim's Progress.